Good morning, class. Today is gonna be our 5th week in math class. And last week, we already discussed about the concept of multiplication. So this time, we are going to learn about the properties of multiplication. So do you know what are the properties of multiplication? The properties of multiplications are, first, we have commutative property of multiplication. Second, we have identity property of multiplication. Third is the zero property of multiplications. And fourth is the associative property of multiplications. To learn more about these properties, let us discuss this one by one. Properties of multiplication. Children need food to grow. They must eat healthy food. Fruits are good for growing children. Gino has 3 small baskets of apples. In each basket has 4 apples. On the other hand, Rafael has 4 baskets. In each basket has 3 apples. Now the question is, who has more apples? Now let's count the number of apples of Gino and Rafael using the multiplication sentence. Now let's go first for Gino. Let's write the number at the first factor. Remember, the first factor is the number of groups. So we have, very good, so we have 3. Now let's look at the second factor. So the second factor is the number of objects in each group. So how many apples do we have on each basket? Very good. We have 4 apples. Now let's count the total number of apples. So Gino has 12 apples. Now let's go to Rafael. Using the multiplication sentence, let's count all the apples that Rafael have. Now let's write the first factor, which is the number of groups. So we have, that's right, we have 4. How about the second factor, the number of objects in each group? We have, great job, we have 3 apples. Now let's count the total number of apples, that is 12. Great job, kids. As you can see, the product of 3 times 4 is the same as the product of 4 times 3. Both give an answer of 12. So meaning to say, this fact illustrates the commutative property of multiplication. This property states that the order of the factors does not affect the product. Thus, 3 times 4 is equal to 4 times 3. Again, remember, commutative property of multiplication, changing the order or position of the factors does not affect the product. Just like this, 6 times 3 is equal to 18. And 3 times 6 is also equal to 18. So meaning to say, using the commutative property of multiplication, 6 times 3 is equal to 3 times 6. How about we have 3 times blank is equal to 4 times 3. What do you think is the missing number? That's right, it's 4. Because 3 times 4 is equal to 12, and 4 times 3 is equal to 12. This is because of commutative property of multiplication. This is because although we interchange the order or the positions of 2 factors, their product is still the same. Now let's have this another example. We have blank times 8 is equal to 8 times 2. What do you think is the missing number? Great job, kids. That is 2. Because 2 times 8 is equal to 16, while 8 times 2 is equal to 16. This is because of commutative property of multiplication. Let's take a look of this illustration, and then let's write the multiplication sentence of this illustration. Again, the first factor is the number of groups. So how many numbers of groups do we have? We have 5. How about the second factor? How many objects do we have in each group? So we have one strawberry in each group. How about the total number of objects? What is the product? Very good. That is 5 strawberries. So 5 times 1 is equal to 5. This property is what we call identity property of multiplications. Always remember that any number multiplied by 1, the product is the number itself. Children, remember identity property of multiplication, any number multiplied by 1 is equal to the number itself. Example, 10 times 1 is equal to 10. How about if we have this? 7 times blank is equal to 7. What do you think is the missing number? Great job! That is 1. Because 7 times 1 is equal to 7, and this is the identity property of multiplication. Let's have another example. How about if we have blank times 1 is equal to 10? What do you think is the missing number? Great job! That is 10. This is because of identity property of multiplication. Take a look at this trays reserved for cookies. Suppose that at the moment you did not bake any cookies yet. So how many cookies do you have? Now let's write this using the multiplication sentence. For the first factor, what is the number of groups? That's right. We have 4 trays. So for the second factor, what is the number of objects in each group? You're right, that is 0. Then what is the total number of objects? That's right, it's 0. So as you can see, 4 times 0 is equal to 0. This is what we call zero property of multiplications. Zero property of multiplications states that any number multiplied by 0 is always equal to 0. Like 0 times 5 is equal to 0. So how about if we have this? Blank times 9 is equal to 0. What do you think is the missing number? You're right, that is 0. This is because of zero property of multiplication. Always remember, any number multiplied by 0 is always equal to 0. How about this example? 8 times 0 is equal to blank. What is the missing number? You're right, it's 0 because of zero property of multiplication. Now let's go to the associative property of multiplication. What if the multiplication sentence contains 3 factors? Let's give an example. What do you think is the product of 4 times 2 times 3? Remember, when we have more than 2 numbers, we can group factors together using parentheses. This makes it easier to read and find its value. Now, let us group 4 and 2 together. So the multiplication sentence now looks like this. So what is the product? To find the product of this multiplication sentence, we have to multiply first the numbers inside the parentheses. So 4 times 2 is equal to 8. And now we have 2 numbers. 8 times 3 is equal to 24. So the product is 24. But suppose we go back to the original sentence and we group together the last 2 numbers, which are 2 and 3. Now let's try to evaluate the new multiplication sentence. So what is the product? To find the product of this sentence, we are going to multiply first the number inside the parentheses. So 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Now we have 2 numbers, which is 4 times 6 is equal to 24. Now we've got the same product, which is 24. Remember, grouping the numbers differently in multiplication sentences and getting the same answers is a result of associative property of multiplication. Now let's have an example. We have parenthesis 2 times 5 close parenthesis times 3 is the same as 2 times parenthesis 5 times 3 close parenthesis. So let's check. Let's solve first the number inside the parenthesis. So we have 2 times 5 is equal to 10. On the other side, we have 5 times 3 is equal to 15. So let's bring down times 3 and times 2. So now 10 times 3 is equal to 30. And 2 times 15 is equal to 30. Now, as you can see, we've got the same product. Now we have parenthesis 4 times 2 close parenthesis times 5 is the same as 4 times parenthesis 2 times 5 close parenthesis. To find the product, let's solve first the numbers inside the parenthesis. So 4 times 2 is equal to 8. On the other side, we have 2 times 5 is equal to 10. So let's bring down times 5 and times 4. So 8 times 5 is equal to 40. And 4 times 10 is equal to 40. Now we've got the same product. So this is because of the associative property of multiplication.
I hope you learned something today. Have a nice day, kids. Bye!